Oh, and welcome. So in example one, we're going to really focus on trying to actually scrape a single web page. So without further ado, here's what we're going to look at today. So I think whenever you're trying to scrape a single web page, there's really three core aspects you need to focus on. First of all is how to actually go about downloading the web page, how to extract information from the page you just downloaded, and of course then how to store that information in a way that's going to be nice for you to actually analyze and do something cool or interesting with. So uh, we're going to just go through this PowerPoint to begin with, and then kind of in the second half I'll actually go through the R script and run it as we go and talk about all the different functions. But I'll just go through this PowerPoint to begin with. So to download a web page, we're going to use the rbest package, and the rbest package contains a function called read underscore HTML, and that downloads a web page and preserves the structure of that page. That's what's known as parsing, to create what they call a document object model. So you download a version of that web page and then you parse it into either HTML or XML structure of that web page. And that's really important because preserving that structure then allows us to actually query that structure as we actually kind of systematically pull out the bits of information that you want from that page. Now, of course, if you're trying to if you're running these scripts at home and you get an error and it says something along the lines of, read HTML function gives an error message, error in open connection, it could be that you're actually operating through a proxy. Now, in essence, a proxy is basically where you don't have a direct access to the internet. So often, if you're working at a university or in an office environment, you'll be connecting to a server, which will then go out towards the internet. And if that does happen, then that's absolutely fine. There's a nice little workaround. You can just use the download file function to download the web page, and then use the read HTML function on that downloaded web page. So just a little bit of a different way of doing things, but again, by adding in that download file, you'll get around the proxy issue error, and you'll still be able to download the file, and then you'll be able to use the read HTML function to preserve the structure of that web page, so creating your document object model, which you'll then be able to query. But for most people, that shouldn't be an issue. The read HTML function should just work absolutely fine as it is. And we'll look at that function in more detail when we go on to the example script. So in terms of how to extract information from a web page, I think there's two kind of general ways about going about doing this. One is to use the tool that we talked about in video one called Select a Gadget. Again, definitely recommend, if you haven't already got that, definitely do download that, and also watch the video on a Select a Gadget website about how to use it. But we'll talk a little bit more about how to use it later on in this video as well. And then Select a Gadget basically allows you to click on parts of the web page which you're interested in, and it will basically generate the right CSS selector or XPath address to locate that information. So if you think about a web page, when you've parsed it and you've got it in that document object model, it's a little bit like a book, a new textbook, and you've got those different chapters, and different chapters perhaps have different subsections, and there's different subsections from different pages for the relevant bits of information that you want. So you can think of it a little bit like the CSS selector is like giving you chapter X, subsection 5, page 200, whatever. So it just gives you that direct information to then pull out the information that you're interested in. Of course, an alternatively, instead of using Select a Gadget, you could use a web developer. So most common web browsers like Chrome and Safari and Internet Explorer have their own web developers, and you can often pull out, once you find the right bit of the page, you can often pull out the CS select or XPath address to locate that information as well. I would say it's probably a little bit less intuitive and doesn't do it as simply and as easily as Select a Gadget. So we're going to use Select a Gadget for this tutorial, but it's absolutely possible to do that, and that can be really useful on pages which perhaps have a lot of JavaScript on, or perhaps Ajax or something, which is stopping Select a Gadget working as well as it should do. So in which cases, definitely the Google, the Chrome, any kind of web developer would be a better option in those cases. So for example, Google Chrome, you simply right click on a web page and go to inspect, and then you can right click again on that bit of text, and you can pull out the CSS selector that you want to find the information. And again, I'll run through that a little bit later on. And the final thing is just, well, now let's imagine that we downloaded the page and we've kind of extracted the information. Well, then how are we actually going to store that information? So there's a number of different strategies you can use to storing the information. It really depends on the scale of the project you're going to do. If it's a really large scale project, then you probably want to create your own database Where for small scale projects, saving it to vectors and then combining those vectors. So when I say a vector, just means like a column in an Excel spreadsheet, just a column of things. And then you can often, when you have multiple columns, you often put them together into a data frame, assuming they're of the same length. And when I say data frame, you can think kind of spreadsheet. So now we're just going to have a work through the example script. So if you haven't already, please do go to the Open Science Framework website, and the URL is given there, and download the example script. And if you could open up the practice website, that would also be really fantastic as well. But I imagine because you're accessing this video, you've probably already done that. But definitely do that, and then we'll work through the example 1 script. So here's the example 1 script, and I guess the first thing, for those who are new to R, and I apologise to those who aren't because I realise I'm putting in a lot of additional details here. The first thing to do in the example script is to kind of install the RVest package and to load it into your library. So whenever you're using R, you often find there are loads of So I've already actually installed it. But it's just going to do that again, and then it's just loaded it into the library. Whenever you're using R, basically a lot of the packages, R has tens of thousands of packages available to it, but they don't always come, well, they don't come for good reason, built into the program, otherwise the program will be really big and really clunky. So what you can do is when you need a package, then you just use install.packages, open your brackets, use a little squiggly, little apostrophes, or you can use single apostrophe, single speech marks, and then put the name of the package, close the bracket, and then once you've installed it, you still need to load it into your library to actually use it. So the way you do that is library, open up brackets, and put the name of the package. Notice this time not in speech marks. So once you've ran those lines of code, and again you run lines of code by highlighting it and pressing the run button, or you can highlight and press Control and Enter. You should notice when you go over to here and you go to your Packages tab, and you scroll down, you go to RVest, it should be ticked. So we can just see if it is ticked. And if it's not, I'm just going to tick it, just to doubly make sure that it is in the library. Excellent. So that was kind of step 1. Step 2, we're just going to call on actual parse the web page. This is basically downloading the web page. We're going to use that read HTML function as we talked about from the RVest package. So a big thank you to Hadley Wickham for creating that for us. It's fantastic. So we've got the function here, read underscore HTML. And then the first argument to that function is the actual web page that you want to download. So in this case, this is the web page that I want to download. So we can just go and have a look at that web page. In this web page, there's basically 3 kind of articles. And what we were trying to do is we're trying to download the title, the picture, or the URL of the picture, so the address of the picture, and also the text below the picture. And we want to do that for each of these 3 articles. And the text there. So very simple little scraper to begin with. Just want to download that information. So how are we going to go about doing that? Well, the first thing is we're going to obviously download the web page using read HTML, and then we're going to basically save this web page in example 1. So I've just created up, I could have called that anything, and I basically just saved. The way I've saved it or assigned this value here is by using the little lesson sign and the hyphen. So what that's done now is it's created a object in our global environment, and it's called example1. It's a list and it's got 2 items in it, so you can see what it's got in it by clicking on the little down arrow. So now what we've got now created is this is our document object model. So this is our model that so basically it's the web page which has been downloaded and has been, the markup structure has been preserved in it by using the read HTML function. So now we can actually go about thinking about extracting information from it. To actually extract information from it, so you want the title, the text, and the image, we're going to use 2 kind of main functions, 2 to 3 main functions. The main one is HTML nodes. So the HTML nodes function takes kind of 2 arguments. So the first argument is the data. So the data is the web page. So feeding it example 1. So that's the data. So what we're basically saying is, hey, can you please identify any nodes as matches any nodes called strong in this particular web page? And the way in which we got this bit strong is you can either use select a gadget or you can use your web developer. So if I'm going to use select a gadget and I want the title, I'm just going to click and initiate select a gadget up here, and then I'm going to click on the page that I want. And you can see that's now gone green, and then you can scroll down and look, the other title's been highlighted for me, and the other title's been highlighted for me. And we're going to keep on scrolling and make sure nothing else is highlighted. Yep, looks like nothing else is highlighted, so that's good. So okay, that's fine. So then I can copy that, and then I can paste that in here, as I've already done. So and once you've done that, you then basically use the pipe. So this is from the Matigear package, and basically that passes that information on to your next function, which is the HTML text function. That basically just pulls out the text from that particular node. So we'll look at that in just a moment. So if we go back to the web page, and I'll close this down. So the moment it's generated a CSS selector, but if we wanted to, we could generate an XPath selector, and there's the XPath selector. Doesn't matter which one you use. So now if I get that selected, but it would be by using the web developer, I right click on the page, on the area of the page that I'm interested in, and I go inspect, and I'll open up the web developer, and you can see here is so we have the header up here, we have various things, divisions, loads of paragraphs, and we eventually get down to the bit of information we're interested in, and you can see we've got something called the strong class, which houses this particular title, and the actual text attached to this title, the actual text in between these tags, the strong class tags, is this new neighborhood. So what we're saying is find this particular tag and then extract the text from that tag. That's what we're saying. So if you wanted to use this one, then you can right click again, and then you can go copy the selector, and then you could paste that selector into that little area there. So instead of using strong, you can paste that selector. That selector will look a little bit different because that selector is, at the moment, it's specific to that particular title. So if we just use this selector highlighted here, we wouldn't get all the other titles in the page, because we just get the top that particular title. So for example, if I then went down and did the same sort of thing for this one here and inspect, you can see it would give me this bit here. If I copy that selector, you notice the selector changes slightly. Copy selector, go back, and you can see now it's changed slightly. So it's got a hierarchical structure within HTML, and it's both on the post25 div, but in this time it's a child 6 rather than the child 3. There's basically some other things before that. But in either case, you just use the last one, and that would give you all the titles that we're interested in this case. So we've got that particular title now, and we're going to save that to an object, and we're calling that object title. So now you can see when we run that line using highlighting it, pressing Control Enter, or pressing Run up there, you basically get in your values section, you get a title, and that's a vector, and the vector has 3 elements, and it's a character vector. If we're interested in identifying kind of, well, I wonder what's in that vector, we can type into the console at the bottom, print, and then the name of that object, that's called title. And then if we run that, you can see that is the 3 titles we've got out. So that's how we get that bit of information. How we get the main text is, again, it's a very similar process. So you use HTML nodes function, you use that on the data. So in this case, the data is example 1, so that's the downloaded web page, and we generate that CSS selector, and this is called .content, and we pass that information, and we just say, hey, we just want the text from that selector. And again, that will pull out the text, and you can see if you run that line, again, you have now the 3 bits of text. And again, if you wish to check what's in there, you can just go print in the main console and print text, and it's printed out for us. So images is a little bit different, and it's a little bit different because again, we're using HTML nodes, and we're giving it the data, and we're giving it a selector. But it's a little bit different because this time, instead of using HTML text, we're using HTML attr function, and we're pulling out the attributes function, and we're pulling out the src, and that's going to give us the URL for that particular image. So we'll look at how we actually generate that particular image, because it's a little bit tricky or a little bit different. So I'm just going to activate select a gadget, click on the image that I'm interested in pulling out, and you can see I've got WPP image. So okay, I'll have a look down and see if there's anything else that's highlighted. So I also want this as well, so which is already highlighted, so probably didn't need to click it. And I also want this as well, so I just can click on that. And then you can still see that actually, oh, hang on, this thing up here is also going to be pulled out as well. We don't really want that. So if you don't want anything, then you just have to click on it again, and that then turns into red. So at the moment, everything that's highlighted in green and yellow is something that's going to be pulled out by this particular CSS selector. And if there's things that you don't want to be pulled out, then you just have to use, you just have to click on it again and make sure it's in red. So that's why we've got post 25 image is selected that pulls out just those images and not that image up there. So I'm going to copy that and paste that into there. And then if you actually look at the web page, so you go to inspect, you can see you've got the image here, and really we're just pulling out this URL that actually helps us to identify the image. So just putting out the src image and just trying to find that there. It's not terribly clear, but basically we're just putting out the URL for that image. And if you run that line of code, you get the images. So it's pulled out the 3 URLs. So now that's great. We've pulled out some information from a web page, which is fantastic. But of course, having it in vectors isn't always that easy to kind of look at and to scan through. So what we might want to do is to create a data frame. So a data frame is basically a series of kind of vectors pulled together, and often those vectors have to be of the same length, unless you're using a tibble. And the way in which you create this data frame is by using the data frame function. And I've just made it a little bit more fancy here by creating an ID variable. We don't need to worry too much about that. Basically, I've just said ID equals, and then I've used the function sequence, and then I've used the argument 1, and then length, so another function title. So what that's going to do is it's going to look at the length of title, which in this case is, you can see it's 3, and it's going to basically generate a sequence from 1 to 3. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, and I save that as an ID variable. Then we've also just got the vectors title, text, and images. And so we run this line, we're going to save all that information to something called example1 data frame. And once we've done that, we'll have a data frame in our environment, in our global environment, in our data, and we can look at that data frame just by going across and clicking on that button there, and that'll open up a data frame which has the URLs for the images, the text for each of the particular titles, articles, and also the title as well. Okay, so have a go and rerunning over the script. Make sure you understand all the different parts of this script, and once you're happy, have a go at trying to do exercise 1 yourself. Create your own script and try and pull out the titles and and pull out the kind of the text and the pictures. So there's exercise 1. And once you've done that, feel free to then have a go at example 2, download the video, watch the video and download the script for that. Okay, thank you very much.